Hey folks, this is Kalani. The very first raid of the Shadowlands expansion is shaping up to make a fantastic debut. We've been able to test every boss on at least normal or heroic, and we've made our way through most of the castle in the appropriate order, with trash included. So I figured it would be nice to have a chat, break a few things down, and give our initial thoughts on the raid so far. I want to talk about the flow of the raid, the look and feel of the raid, the encounter design and difficulty, and how it all works together. Before we jump in, be sure to pop by our live stream sometime over at twitch.tv/KalaniTV. We stream every Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday and Saturday at 12 PM PST, and we always love chatting with you wonderful folks, so I hope to see you soon. Castle Nathria is in the Revendreth zone and is basically Dracula's castle, but in World of Warcraft. You might be thinking, well, surely they can't pull that off very well, right? But I'm here to tell you that they can. The castle is huge, both on the outside and on the inside. You'll be trekking through hallways, down sewer pipes, into the cellar, and then climbing the tower to the very tippy top. From what we experienced, the raid is pretty linear for the most part. There's not much choice in where you can go next or which boss to take on. Thanks to that, the story is kind of cool. The major NPCs from Revendreth's story follow you through most of the castle, making remarks as they go and telling you why you're there and why each boss is at least somewhat important. The story itself is kind of typical at this point, and I don't want to get into spoiler territory, but it's safe to say that we have a very good reason for sacking this castle, besides the item level upgrades, of course. Some of the areas of the castle are breathtaking and beautiful, like the ballroom where you fight the Council of Blood. The room is absolutely massive, and I doubt you're going to use all of that dance floor to boogie on down, but it gives you lots of options of how to approach the boss, and it looks fantastic. The cellar where you fight Lady Inerva is also extremely cool. You can look over her railing at a massive hoard of anima, stored in huge containers. It seems like a very wealthy store indeed when you consider that the vast majority of the Shadowlands are currently experiencing a lethal drought of anima, but I'm sure that's none of our business. The visual it creates is quite unique. Honestly, most boss rooms fit the bill, whether you're in a stable taking down the Houndmaster, out on the spires of the castle facing off against the Stone Generals, or taking on Nathria himself. Nathria apparently has 3 phases with 3 different rooms to fight in, by the way. You transition between them as you reach certain percentages, so that's going to be a bit of a hectic fight for sure. The raid flows pretty well, and the story makes sense, and the design and art team are amazing as per usual. No real shock there though, the art team has been carrying for as long as I can remember. It's going to be a very pretty raid tier, but what about the fights themselves? I can tell you for sure that the first fight is going to be a bit of a problem for some groups. I do hesitate to call it a guild breaker, because hopefully your guilds can stick together through thick and thin, and some measly first boss fight won't tear you apart, but it's definitely going to be a pug killer. Absolutely. It's not the first time the initial boss of a raid is a tough nut to crack, but this one is going to be crazy for some people. You have to line of sight for some abilities, you have to stack in dedicated locations to stop the blood pools covering the entire room, you have to stand in those blood pools sometimes, but not always, and there's even a hide and seek phase where if you damage the boss at all, or take damage from any of his abilities, you'll get stunned and take a bunch of damage in AoE, so you can also kill your entire raid if you're the only person who gets hit, and if you ever get close to him during this phase, you just instantly die. You have to hide behind the pillars, stay out of line of sight, and avoid all of the orbs floating around. If you can do that until his energy runs out, you can go back to DPSing him, back to phase 1, while managing the debuffs, blood pools, and line of sight stuff, while making sure you don't run out of room. There's quite a lot going on, but mostly it's just really unforgiving, and that's the very first boss you encounter. The next 3 bosses after that were actually easier for our group, quite significantly, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were easier for almost everyone else too. Obviously, tuning is not finished, but the damage of bosses isn't even really the problem here. Lots of these fights are very mechanic heavy, and it's the mechanics that are going to kill you if you can't execute them properly. That holds true through the vast majority of the raid. There are some DPS races thrown in for good measure too, and a lot of fights have their own gimmicky stuff going on. During the Council of Blood, you'll have to do a little dance as an intermission phase, and if you mess up, you either get stunned for 30 seconds, or you just die. The Artificer boss has a mechanic where you place a large portal to let you cross the room in an instant, which you will definitely be making use of during the entire fight, because mind control ants chase you at high speed. You have to drop off a lot of different bombs at one side of the room so you don't blow yourselves up. You're going to be making use of it. So as long as the portal's placed correctly, you'll be fine. If they don't, you're gonna die. Each boss felt unique in their own way, and there are a lot of variances in this raid tier. Everything adds up to what promises to be an absolutely amazing final boss in Nathria as well, so that's something to really look forward to. I will say that some of the fights on normal had more abilities and mechanics than some fights on mythic, especially when compared to previous raid tiers. So when I say there's a lot of mechanics to deal with, I really mean it. The Lady Inevra fight, for example, has 4 different major abilities that you have to keep track of, but the gimmick of the fight is that each ability becomes empowered depending on the anima in 4 tanks at the back of the room. You can empty these tanks unless the boss is specifically empowering it. So not only do you have to keep track of all 4 abilities and deal with them appropriately, but each ability becomes empowered 2 different times. So there's 3 variations of each ability for you to keep track of as well. If that sounds like a lot, that's because it is. That's all on normal difficulty as well, by the way. Some of these fights are going to get hectic for sure, so I'm super excited to be making raid guides again for Shadowlands to help you get through all of these bosses. Fingers crossed, anyway. So some of them are definitely much easier than the others. Hungering Destroyer comes to mind as a fairly straightforward tank and spank fight, and the Huntsman fight does have quite a few abilities, but they're spread out quite thinly through 3 different phases, so you only really have 2 or 3 to worry about at a time. Honestly, we had more troubles with some of the trash packs than we did with some of the bosses. Trash seems quite light through the first section of the raid, and then you get to the trash leading to the Artificer and to Kael'thas. This stuff hurts. There are mobs that chain stun you, mobs that spam an AoE that leaves a nasty dot on you, traps are thrown down that nuke your raid if someone trips them, and there are assassins that vanish and literally just one-shot your healers. It's pretty crazy, and it's actually quite hard to get through. Thankfully, those trash packs seem to be a bit of an anomaly and should hopefully get tuned down, but for the most part you shouldn't have too many issues if your guild is AFKing trash, because there's just so much of it before the next boss encounter. Another really cool feature that the dev team implemented for this raid was the floor skips. As you progress through the raid, you'll activate blood mirrors. Anyone familiar with the Revendreth Sanctum will know exactly what these do, but a blood mirror is basically just a portal, only it looks way cooler, and there appear to be 4 of them at the start of the raid, so 4 skips potentially for you to unlock. Most of this is going to be related to running back after wiping, rather than skipping bosses on a new lockout. But as I said earlier, Castle Nathria is a huge raid instance, so I'm very thankful for the mirrors cutting your run back time down quite considerably. If you're curious about an actual raid skip for future lockouts, there is a quest at the start for you to collect 4 Sludge Fist heads. I'm not too sure how you collect the head of the same dude 4 different times, but who am I to question video game logic? Sludge Fist is the 8th boss in the raid, so that might let you skip straight to the second to last boss after you complete the quest. That would cut down your refarming time quite considerably, which is always nice, especially when the last bosses tend to drop some of the coolest items in the raid tier. Overall, both I and my guild have enjoyed our time testing all of the bosses. They're all quite different, yet fit into the overarching theme of Castle Nathria. Some are quite a bit easier mechanically, some are quite complex, and there's a nice variation on DPS requirements to give you some bosses you will only just eke out a kill on, and then some bosses which will be more of a pushover, providing you can do the mechanics anyway. The last boss also looks amazing from what we've tested so far, which is great to see, because the first raid tier of an expansion will set the pace for the next 2 years of World of Warcraft endgame. Sometimes that first raid hasn't been that great, which is always a shame, because raids in WoW are still some of the best endgame content you could ask for in an MMO, and this time around it looks like Blizzard has another winner with Castle Nathria. It looks great, it plays great, and I just can't wait for this expansion to release so we can all work our way through it, with a little help from those shiny raid guides of course. But what do you think from what you've seen so far, or maybe even tested? Do you think they nailed Dracula's castle, or were you hoping for something else? How do you feel about most of these fights, especially the first fight being quite mechanically intensive? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. If you want to explore the beta or help us get ready for Shadowlands, you can find us over at twitch.tv/KalaniTV. We stream every Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday and Saturday at 12 PM PST, and we're doing Jaina runs, mythic Jaina runs for a chance at the mythic Jaina mount every single Saturday until we can't do it anymore. So if mythic Jaina mount is something on your list, pop by on Saturday, we'll try squeeze you into a group and then you'll have a chance to get it before it turns into a 1% drop. Besides that, watching the stream and coming to say hi is one of the best ways you can support the channel right now, and if you ever wanted to be included in the long list of names at the end of every video, a subscription on Twitch is the easiest way to make that happen. You get a free sub to any Twitch channel if you have Amazon Prime too, so be sure to take advantage of that. A big thank you to everyone who's subscribed on Twitch already, and to our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, well, now you know how. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.